Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
All right, everybody. Welcome again to the Trailblazers AC podcast. We have here today Zach Softly. He's the founder and CEO of Layer, where he leads company operations and product development. With a decade of experience participating and leading computational design and innovation initiatives, Zach's passion for improving the building lifecycle drives the vision and energy behind Layer, a multi-platform app and Revit add-in that makes it easy for architects and engineers to connect rich building data to BIM. Zach, do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want to add anything else to the intro?
No, I think that's great. Yep. I'm the founder of Layer, and I'm excited to be on with you today.
Great. Love to have you here. Let's start with some questions in a personal level. How do you decide to become an architect?
So I would say that kind of started when I was 10 or 11. I would say I remember drawing floor plans and drawings of houses, dream houses that I wanted to live in once I grew up. And at that point, I realized like I would love to do this full time. And so as I grew up, I think 13, 14, ended up in a CAD class, I think. And that really kickstarted my love for design and particularly buildings. And from there, like I said, I kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do. So started the program at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, at the College of Architecture. They're not really knowing what architecture was fully, just knowing that like I wanted to design buildings. And went through that program, and the rest is kind of history. So yeah.
Like I feel that I'm an architect as well. So for all of us, it's the same. You get to college, and it's like, yeah, I know I want to draw houses, but there are so many things you can do when you're an architect, right? It's not just about design. Even though sometimes that's the only thing that teachers push you to do, right?
Yes.
But in your case, after you became an architect, what was your first job? How do you start it?
Yeah, I got a job at the summer of my third year in architecture school at a small firm called BVH Architecture here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so that was kind of my first real taste of the profession, I think. And there's a big difference between academia and the professional realm of architecture. So I learned a ton that summer and dove into quite a few projects at that firm. They were currently working on some existing condition assessments for the state capitol. They were working on the Gateway Arch conditions assessment. They're starting work on the Haymarket Arena. So like I kind of ended up falling into a lot of those types of projects as just support for specifically around computational design and data solutions for those problems. So anyways, that's where I started. And then ultimately when I graduated in 2012 with my master's degree, I ended up getting a job there full time.
And how was that transition that you mentioned between like being an architect and start working on the computational design realm? It was something that came natural to you? It was something that you had to do because your boss told you, or?
I remember in my third year of college, hearing about Grasshopper for the first time, and downloading it because I had Rhino, and I downloaded Grasshopper, and I started connecting nodes and doing. And for those who may not know, Grasshopper is a visual scripting plugin for Rhino, and I started connecting the nodes together and realizing the power behind computational and parametric tools, and I never looked back. That I was attached and super excited to just learn more and more and more about how I could put these tools to use. So that kind of started in my third year of architecture school, and again, I continued to develop those skills. So it started before my love for computational design really started before the a job in the professional realm. It started in school, I would say.
I think that something that we all have in common when we work on the tech side of the AC is like a lot of us started using either Dynamo or Grasshopper.
Yeah.
Grasshopper, if you're a little bit older.
Yeah.
Dynamo. No, I'm just kidding. I started. I remember I started with Dynamo by that time, but I remember that it was not as easy to use as Grasshopper. It was.
Yeah.
You remember the yellow notes.
Yeah.
Most times you hit run, nothing happened. It just
Yeah.
broke. So the same happened to me. Tried Dynamo. I was like, this is not so good. Moved to Grasshopper. And it's so cool. Yeah, it's like the first steps. But then you started programming as well, or it was just visual programming for you?
So I think after that third year, I found creative ways to use Grasshopper on every single studio project I was working on, to its detriment sometimes, that I would kind of force that as a solution. But I think like what I was doing kind of unknowingly through my fourth, fifth years of school was continuing to develop those skills in computational design and using projects as a way to kind of, I guess, further my knowledge of how these systems work. So it started with kind of simple routines that were helping me with modeling tasks, but then getting more into like generative forms from these tools. And then I dove into, actually starting to create custom scripts using Python nodes. And so I think like my skills just continue to evolve through again fourth and fifth years of school. And during that time too, on the professional side, I was working as an intern part-time during the school year as well at BVH Architecture. I continued to just find creative ways to solve project problems with parametric tools like Grasshopper. And so I think all of that just kind of naturally increased my abilities in those platforms, and that kind of all led up to my sixth year of architecture school, where my thesis was really focused on data-driven architecture. Basically, how can we use data to drive form and function of a building? So my entire year of thesis was spent kind of diving into the programming realm and developing and programming to effectively drive form and function of a building.
That's so cool that your actual thesis is so related with
Yeah, it
the
is.
product you're building.
It is very related.
Typically the thesis of most architects are even computational designers, right? Are like, I don't know, the design of a building or a specific building, and then they realize like, no, this is not the thing I want to do. I want to do code and products, and they have to start from scratch. You were able to do a thesis. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. You said that you were creating Grasshopper scripts, and sometimes you were even forcing people to use it, or I don't recall the word you used, but that in some cases it was not even necessarily. Uh, in,
Yeah. I think like I remember specifically a project in fourth year where I used Grasshopper to generate to generate the entire form of this project in this building. Um, and it was forced in that I was forcing that solution, in that Grasshopper probably was not the appropriate tool to actually be designing and like generating the form for this particular project. But I think like I was so enthused with it, with the tool, that I was using it for everything on the design side. So I guess what my point there was just, it was probably being used in areas that I shouldn't have been using it, looking back. So
Well, but I think that's a great lesson that we have all done it. I agree with you. We have all done it. When you start using Dynamo or Grasshopper, you want to use it for everything.
yes,
Sometimes it's not even worth it. It's just you want to use it for one project, and you spend maybe sometimes a huge amount of hours, and then you just save 2 hours for just using an
exactly.
algorithm. You have to just done it manually. But I think it's a great way of learning, not so much the code, because when I started coding myself, at least for me, it was like, I know how to code, I'm a superhero now.
Hmm.
And well, that's amazing, but it's just another tool. I guess the most important knowledge is being like a product owner. Like when you're doing a Grasshopper node, you're a product owner. You're like a small entrepreneur inside an architectural firm, because you
Hmm.
have to sell this to people and you have to provide results, and there's a return of investment of your hours. And and the good thing is, like, if you fail, like you said, and we have all done it, you don't fail, you don't make a big fail, like going bankrupt with a startup. So it's those small lessons, I feel, that serves really well to founders who have their own startups. I guess that's my
That's
thought. What
true. Yeah.
do you feel like that as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like there's a lot of salesmanship that goes into uh, computational and parametric roles within a firm, in that like you have to be super clear about communicating the value that you might be delivering with a certain script or program, just because most people are not going to understand what it's doing, behind the scenes. So like you really have to communicate, I think, the value that these solutions might be delivering to a project. So I remember, and I think that I learned that lesson on several projects um, in the professional realm, where it has to be connected to value, otherwise people aren't going to buy into it.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a story that it seems so simple, but it's so hard when you're the owner of a product, that you think of features all the time that you want to implement on it, and, and you think this is a great idea,
Hmm.
and then you take it to market, and nobody wants to use it, or nobody wants
Yeah,
to buy it, and you realize, like, you cannot even trust your own judgment sometimes. It's a thin balance that it's so hard between uh, trusting your own experience, but at the same time listening to the users, and it's not as easy as it sounds. um, at least I bet you have suffered the same experience, right?
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, a lot of times you make you take your best guess, but like I think the then this is relevant for like actual products versus um, scripts that you might be uh, wanting to use at a firm, but like getting it in the hands of end users as quickly as possible is probably your best bet at understanding the value that you're delivering to customers, because you can take your best guess, um, but a lot of times it's not until you get it into the hands of your users that you fully understand um, what it's doing and what it's not doing for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. um, and how was for you going from the guy who did the scripts at the architectural firm into start creating your own product? How did that happen?
Yeah, good question. So uh, it all kind of started with, well, I guess backing up a little bit. Once I graduated and started working full time at this architecture firm, I was just a traditional project architect working on projects. But what I was kind of doing in the process is identifying opportunities on projects that I was working on to implement, computational tools like Grasshopper to solve specific project problems. So typically that started by kind of identifying those problems at the beginning, developing a solution, and then showing team members, hey, look what we can do. And that I continued to do that as I worked, again, kind of in the traditional role of architect. And I kind of ended up kind of falling into a role of people knowing that I had these skills, seeing problems that they were having on their own projects and bringing me those problems to see if I could help with some type of solution. And so that was the case on the Nebraska State Capitol project. The firm was awarded basically a 10-year HVAC replacement project for the Nebraska State Capitol. The project team, as part of the project, had to go out and gather a ton of information and data on site. Basically go room to room, window to window, door to door, and gather a ton of data on each of those items. So the team had this really detailed Revit model of the building. So geometrically, we had a ton of great information. The problem was we didn't have the conditions data that we needed in order to make design decisions for the project. And so the team's plan was to basically go out on site with the digital camera, walk room to room, snap photos, jot down conditions like the west wall material is, tile, it's preservation worthy, its condition is fair, all of those types of things. Jot all that down on notepads, come back to the office, download it all, scan those notes in, and stick them in file folders so that you could find them, months or even years down the road. They knew that wasn't going to work. I think overall we gathered like 39,000 photos, interior photos of the building. So like it was a lot of data that the team was gathering. And so up front, they knew they needed an alternative. And so I went kind of looking for a solution out there, didn't find anything that was going to solve our problem. And so I ended up building a prototype over the weekend that essentially connected to our Revit model, extracted the rooms, doors, and window objects from the model, and then made those like objects available in a list on a phone, on an iPhone. So a user in the field could then see the full list of rooms, click on an item, and then snap photos in the field, answer survey questions for that particular room. And then all of that information would then be automatically connected to that room in the model. So then essentially the user had side-by-side information of the existing conditions as they were navigating their Revit model. That I kind of brought that prototype to the team and said, hey, like, this is an option. What do you think about this? Fully expecting them to shoot it down. And all of them, to my surprise, were like, let's do this. This is cool. So over the next, I think, 4 months, we spent essentially, I spent kind of heads down developing this tool as the team was using it in the field. So like it was a very like it was actually a great process of because we had an immediate connection to our end users and had immediate feedback and could provide immediate updates to the system as needs arise. But over the next 4 months, it kind of continued to develop as the team was surveying. And by the end of that, we basically had this great repository of information that was connected to our model, and the 27 team members on this particular project all had access to this information as they were navigating the Revit model. So I think at that point, I realized that we were solving a pain point that was much bigger than just this project. And so I kind of knew I had that decision sitting in front of me. Like, do I want to take and pursue this further, or do I just want to move on to the next project and develop a different solution for this next thing down the line? And that's kind of where I ended up.
I love it. You make it sound so easy. Like,
it wasn't easy. It was messy.
Yeah. I just made this thing over the weekend, then
Well,
everybody started using it.
Yeah, what was funny is it was before my understanding of, working with an MVP, a minimum viable product, and like the best practices in the industry of software, and that you get your software out to your users as early as possible so that you can get immediate feedback. It was before my understanding of any of that stuff. But like looking back, it actually was a great way to build a tool, and that we were getting a super buggy and like minimum viable product into the hands of our end users who were giving us immediate feedback on the product. So that whole process was invaluable to, I think, the success of the tool today.
And it's so cool because it correlates with great products out there. Like, I don't know, Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg or these great heroes of the tech industry. Like, they all started the same way. It was just one or two guys doing the tool themselves, learning a lot about the client from day zero.
Yep.
And I feel it's a great path. I've seen, not only here, I've seen firsthand so many companies that they raise money, but they don't do it like you do, like or you did. Like, started just a few people trying to provide value as soon as possible. They just start building this huge product without even having a single user, and then they fail, they go bankrupt, or like, I love what you did, and I love that you're the founder, so you know exactly how the product works from the start. But then I'm curious. Like you said, it's a much more complex task going from this internal MVP product that a lot of companies create internal products,
Yep.
and it's a completely different story taking something that's internal and it's adapt only to one company than taking that to multiple companies. And I'm just curious on how was the journey after the point that you decided, okay, I'm going to pursue this. How was that?
Yeah. So I think it started like the first realization that this could have application beyond just this particular project was when the project team, over the course of this survey, I think we started with like 50 data points that we were gathering for every single room. And so those were reflected in a form that users could fill out with text inputs, with a toggle switch for a true false thing, with a drop down select input for different options we needed to select. And those are all hard coded into the software, those fields or form fields. And I think after like the, I don't know, 25th time of the project manager coming to me saying, hey, can we tweak this in the form, or can we change this? I was kind of sitting at my desk and was like, I am sick of making these changes, these small changes to the code based off of just little tweaks they want to make to the form. What if I allowed them to control the fields and the settings for that particular form field in the app? And so I ended up over the next day or two implementing that or making that change. And that was kind of the start for, I think, the kind of flexible platform that we've put together today, because it was kind of made by necessity. We had to do it because there had to be adjustments to this building survey and condition assessment form. But starting like from a condition assessments foundation, the framework for gathering that information has to be one flexible, because every project and every company is concerned about gathering different types of data. So we ended up kind of starting unknowingly building this kind of flexible framework from the beginning. But again, once we got through the survey and realized that this could have more application than just this particular project. Again, I had to think through, like, okay, do I want to pivot my career and move away from architecture and go into take this risk on this product, or do I want to just continue down the traditional career path with kind of this technology focus? And ultimately I decided, yeah, let's do it. Like I didn't think that this opportunity was going to come about every day. And so I decided to pursue it. And so at that stage, the company decided to essentially partner with me to essentially back my time in rebuilding the app from the ground up. So I spent probably the next 6 months rebuilding the application from the ground up, and we launched in April of 2019. And at that stage, it was just me working again at this architecture firm, and they were basically allowing me to focus the majority of my time on this product. We launched the product in April and of 2019, and then from there we hired our first developer in May. Right after that, and our second team member immediately following that. So at that point, when we got it out to market, like, we got it out into the hands of early users and got, again, a ton of great feedback about what direction and we could head with this product. And so we developed a business plan and essentially continued to build. I basically pivoted I pivoted full time into that product, and we've been building the company ever since the last couple of years. So
it's a really interesting journey, and it's so good to have basically your first client was backing you up to build the product. So that's, yeah. I also feel that's like the perfect path, because instead of having an investor who might provide you only money, is having a company that are really interested on the product.
Exactly. Yeah.
How was that first experience, being the architect who codes alone and having to hire a developer? How was that first interaction with a real developer out there?
I remember sitting down to lunch with our potential developer hire, kind of going through the app with him and showing him the ropes. And I think he was hooked from seeing that day one. He had worked at a larger company, worked on kind of a segment of a particular product, and was really interested in getting into getting more ownership of a product. And so I remember sitting down to lunch with him, and I think he walked into it pretty skeptical and not really thinking this was going to go anywhere. But as he says, he kind of walked out realizing, okay, this is going to be something big, and I want to be a part of it. So he let me know that he wanted to join, and we ended up hiring him. And like I said, a month after we launched, and it went really well, honestly. Handing over, I still continue to code probably for the next year and a half, I would say, pretty regularly. But then as we continue to build our development team, I've been out of coding directly for quite a while. But yeah.
I always say that when you feel that you're in the middle of the other developers, when you start feeling that, is the moment you have to decide to stop coding, because you're not doing that good of a job anymore.
Exactly. It's funny because we still talk about, our development team still finds little nuggets of original code from the app. Most of what we've done, we've refactored in some way or another with our current development team, but they still let me know every time they run into a gem of of mine coded back in 2019 or
Oh,
whatever.
spaghetti code. This is Zach.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
No, I bet the code was good. I bet the code was
All good.
good. And have you hired most of the developers you have are just developers, or have you hired other folks that come from the industry like you did and became software developers? Did you hire any other profiles like yours, or how was?
Yeah, good question. No, so we haven't currently. Currently, all of our developer hires have come from the actually the Rakes program here at the College of Computer Sciences here at UNL. So that's where all of our developers have come from to date. Uh, when it comes to like the experience in or the background in architecture, uh, we focused most of our customer success hires on individuals who have background and experience in architecture and engineering, mainly because they're the ones working with our customers in implementing the tool and identifying ways that they can build workflows to solve their problems. So those are probably the hires where we've focused on hiring with the AEC background.
I like what you did there because, and even with that sometimes collides with my own business, but like there are a lot of people in the industry who think, hey, I'm an architect, I need to learn how to code, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure about that. Like, yeah, you need to know enough to manage a developer if you want to put together a product. I agree on that, but learning how to code, I don't think is a must. I do think it's a must knowing about product ownership and how to lead a team that it's developing something. And for sure, for really specific technologies like 3D stuff or certain complex like a Voronoi algorithm, I don't know. Yeah, it is great to have an architect who is also a developer, but for
Yeah.
most cases, it is not. It is not. And yeah, I don't know. Well, that's my feeling. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of that like understanding that like, oh, I'm an architect, I need to learn how to code or need to learn how to do visual scripting or whatever else, I think comes from the fact that like we have inadequate tools a lot of times that don't enable us to uh, uh, solve the problems we need to solve. So like we have to the result is, yeah, I guess you could also say the other side of the coin is that buildings are very complex. So there's a lot that goes into the design of buildings, and every building is different. But I think a lot of that is shortcomings in the tools that we're using on a daily basis, and so we think the only, I guess, alternative there is to build our own tools that solve our problems, and those usually result in one-off tools that we're building. Um, Again, in visual scripting tools like Dynamo or Grasshopper, um, and trying to then like deploy those to our team. And it's not easy to do that in a reliable way, I would say. So I think that's actually one of the problems we're trying to solve is being able to like standardize your workflows on a reliable platform that you can deploy these custom tools across your team that are connected to tools like Revit. But again, they're scalable in that you can actually deploy these to your team in a reliable way versus building your own solution and trying to debug it as end users run into issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's what you are doing with Layer right now.
Correct. Yeah.
And how do you feel you're helping the industry? How do you feel Layer can help architects, engineers, or whoever is using it nowadays?
Yeah, I think like the value that we're delivering is we're essentially giving users or companies a toolkit to create their own custom tools connected to their building data. So tools like building data that sits inside of Revit and other tools is really valuable information, but a lot of times it's locked kind of in that silo. And it's difficult to get it out. We're either exporting spreadsheets out or, getting information out in other ways. But what we do is we connect to these models and then make that information available on any device. And so now users have access to the model data, but then teams can also build and standardize their own tools that are connected to that building data, like Revit models, et cetera. So we're really in this to make building data accessible and actionable. And that's kind of the two things that we're really focused on.
I've been a user. I'm biased because I've been a user of your platform and even coded on top of it. But I do love the way that you make Revit simple, or Revit data simple, for example, because for an architect that have been using Revit for, 10 years, it's a easy to use product. But I remember the first time I started working on Revit, and it was so complex. And me being an architect, so and also the fact that most people who works on an architectural firm, for example, or a construction firm, most of them, they don't even use Revit, and they don't even know how to use Revit. So, but they do need that data, how to use it in a way that it's friendly and that you can even use it with your cell phone. So I love what you have done there, for sure. And I'm just curious, who are the type of users that more taking advantage of your platform right now? Is it architects? Is it people in the field, like it happened with your first project, or what type of users are taking more advantage of it? Or
Yeah, good question. So our primary users are really architects, engineers, and contractors, even who are interacting with a Revit model or related model types. So what we're doing is, again, we're connecting to those models, and then some of the primary like workflows or tools that our customers are building, and I guess finding value in our platform with is workflows like FF&E, the management of fixtures, furniture, and equipment, managing room data sheets, and then doing condition assessments, building surveys, facility audits, that type of work where you're connecting data in the field back to information in your model. Those are probably the primary workflows that our customers are using. Kind of secondary to those workflows that I think most customers like identify as areas that we help with after the fact is all the work that you can do in CA, all the workflows you can do in CA of a particular project. So we have teams that utilize Layer for punch lists, site observation and field reports, taking meeting minutes. And again, the value we're delivering in those workflows is that you can connect all of these issues, site observations, even links directly inside of meeting minutes, directly back to objects in your model using mentions. So you can mention rooms, you can mention pieces of equipment or furniture, and then there's a relationship created between that note or that observation or that issue and the object back in your project model.
that's cool. And what are you thinking for the future, like in your roadmap? You're considering connecting to more platforms, you're considering just one platform but adding new features to it, or how what Layer is going to look in 5 years?
Good question. So a couple big things we're working on right now is extending our integrations library. So right now the models that we work with are fairly limited, but we're looking at expanding that list of integrations, both with models and also with just other platforms out there. Like we're working on a integration directly into BIM Collaborate Pro, and Procore and tools like that. But I think our objective is really to be the home for a building's data, both during the design and construction, and then into the actual operations and maintenance of that particular facility. So that's really the vision, is kind of one source of truth and one home for this data that's accessible anywhere, and you can take action on based on this data.
Oh, that's so cool. And I think it's a huge problem in the industry that everybody complains about, that data is not connected, or there are silos everywhere, or there are silos between phases, and I feel this doesn't happen in other industries. They don't have this problem as well.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think you, are the owner of a product that tries to solve this? Why do you think that's happening in our industry nowadays?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, the problem of data drops between stakeholders, I think, is a huge problem. Unfortunately, I think, just in my estimation, I know there's a ton of factors I think that go into it, but I think one of the major factors is just the contractual agreements that exist between parties. I think a lot of times, legal concerns are what cause us to kind of I think, hold our data closely to our vest, and not share with other parties, because we're concerned about, um, uh, again, legal concerns, like who's responsible for this data, or who's responsible for this decision, or, oh, the model showed it this way, but the contract documents show it another way. And so which one's right? So, I think it comes from a good place, in that people want to be cautious about what they're sharing. But I think that has ultimately led to major data drops between stakeholders. And so, unfortunately, that's a really hard problem to solve. But it's not just a matter of programming our way out of it, building a software solution that connects these tools. I think it's more complicated than that. So
No, it is, and I feel that I bet I think that the best way of analyzing this is doing analogies to other industries, like, for example, I don't know, the car industry. It's completely different because you have just one company owning the whole process.
mm-hmm.
So it's easier because they have their own rules, and it's just all different providers just communicating with just a single company, a single
Yeah.
entity. Here, it doesn't work that way. Even if there is an owner, it doesn't work that way. It's like different companies on a process that it's so hard because there is not a single. Even when there is a GC or whatever, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I agree. It's a complex process that needs to be solved. And it's not only about technology. I've heard so many people saying, "Oh, we need this great format that it's gonna be
Yeah.
a way that everybody can use." But
Yeah.
in the end, it's always people. It's not only creating a fancy algorithm or a fancy format that everybody can use, I guess.
That's true. Yep.
Uh,
Exactly right.
so I bet you're having tough troubles implementing, like everybody does in the industry, but it's the work. It needs to be done, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and we see a path forward there. I think it's just a hard path to go down.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, for sure, I just love how all the pieces are put together in the history of how you made layer that, being an architect, doing algorithms and grasshopper first, having a thesis on data management, having your own first, your boss being your first client, and everything. Like it sounds like the perfect path, and I hope all the people can follow what you did with their own ideas. And I do have a couple of ping pong questions for you.
Cool.
So the first thing that comes to your mind, just shoot.
Okay.
So can you tell me a great AC software?
I would say my favorite is Grasshopper and continues to be. I think like beyond just like my own experience with the tool, it's pretty cool to see the impact that had on the industry. I think it had a profound impact on the way we design buildings and kind of form the basis for parametric design. So I would say that's probably my favorite.
It is. I'm glad you didn't say layer. That would have been a little bit boring.
Yeah, no kidding.
What do you think is the next big trend in the AC?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is digital twins get talked about a lot. But I think there's a lot of problems with how we implement digital twins. So I would expect to see some work in that arena, specifically with how we can process and summarize data, with AI and other tools that are, or other technology that's at our fingertips now.
Okay. If you could collaborate with any person in history or on any project, which person would you choose?
Oh boy. I think I love work. I love Buckminster Fuller. So I think I would have a lot of fun working on a project with him. I'm sure it would be a geodesic dome or something like that, but that's probably who I would choose.
Good choice. Outside the AC, what are your hobbies or activities? I know you own a farm in Nebraska, but what is is that your passion, or what other hobbies do you have?
Yeah, I would say we have my wife and I have 4 kids. We live on a small acreage, so I would say one of our biggest hobbies is just hobby farming. We've got some goats and chickens and a garden. So I think we all love being outside, and we all love working on that stuff. So that's probably one of our biggest hobbies. It takes up a lot of our time.
Yeah, I bet, and good way of maintaining a balance between technology and just nature and
Exactly.
quiet sometimes. So, what's your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
That's a long list of favorite buildings, but like the first thing that comes to my mind is 432 Park Avenue in New York, the which is the super tall residential tower. I've not visited it at all. I'd love to visit it, but some of the interior pictures and the exterior, like what it does to the New York skyline, I think is unforgettable. So I really love that project.
Cool. Okay, Zach, I know you're a busy CEO, and I don't want to take more of your time. Thanks very much for being here. This was so insightful about your life and Layer as well. Before we say goodbye, can you tell the audience where they can contact you and where they can know more about Layer?
Sure. Yeah. If you're interested in finding out more about Layer, you can reach out to me. My email is zach@layer.team. You can check out our website. It's layer.team. And we'd love to do a demo and show you what our product can do. So it'd be awesome.
Cool. Thanks very much for your time, Zach. We'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.